today's video isn't going to be super long, but I do, which probably a lot of you are like, whew, finally a Zach video that's not 30 minutes. But today I want to talk about the Walrus Audio ACS1. Now this isn't a full review, this is really just an issue that I have with this pedal. As great as it is, it does have one key glaring issue that I can't get past. And it works. I just want to reiterate, this pedal has been amazing. I have loved it. I've loved using it. I love the features. I love the sounds, some of the sounds that you can get out of this. However, if you're playing with a lot of distortion with high gain, or even if you want a lot of that upper end harmonic content that you get out of a real amp with a real mic, you might find that this pedal is rolling off the top and the bottom end in a way that just isn't natural. And yeah, we got to talk about this. So to do this, I've kind of devised a simple test here in Cubase, but let me show you the ACS1 first and we'll talk about the setup. So basically I have this 1/4" cable coming out of output 3 from the Behringer UMC 404 HD. Get some more light in there. And then that's coming into the mono input on the ACS1, and then out of the mono output, or the left output, we're going into this MAKO MDB2P passive direct box. I know some people are going to say, oh, well, you need a Walrus canvas. It does not affect the frequency response that much, if anything. And I'll show you that this has a nice, good frequency response in just a minute. And so then this is going back into the audio interface, and it's coming in to channel 3 here. And if I were to bypass the ACS1, so bypass, and then I have a channel set up, and I have a loop of white noise playing here. Bypass, so ACS1 on, ACS1 off. If we look at the frequency response graph, let me mute everything. If we look at the frequency response graph of the white noise, it is razor flat, right? This is just some bog standard white noise that's being generated. And I can send it to a different output as well. I can send it to the stereo output, right? So it's very flat, and I'm just adjusting the gain so it's hitting right at 0. So I did a bit of adjustment there. Let me send it back to the mono output. So it's going into here, and let me turn on the monitoring, right? So if I unplug this, right, you're not hearing anything. And I could also go straight into the direct box here as well. So you can see it's coming in with a bit of gain loss. Let me bring that up just a little bit, right to there. Perfect. Well, it looks like I'm clipping, so let me check. Yeah, it's clipping if I do that. So I need to bring it down just a skosh so that we don't clip. Okay. And then let's run back through the ACS1. Now, the ACS1 with firmware version 1.29 allows for me to bypass the cab by holding down this button, the bypass button, and turning this mids knob down. Okay. So if I engage the ACS1, I set all the EQ at noon, volume at noon, gain at noon. We're on the Fullerton amp model. It doesn't matter which cab we select. Notice that it's still sounding the same because I have cab bypass, so with cab on. So notice that sounds like a cabinet. Cabinet bypass. Okay, so now that we have the cabinet bypass, notice the frequency response graph difference. No ACS1, ACS1. Notice these regions. It's rolling off these regions quite drastically, as well as here. Now, I'm willing to forgive this area as it interferes with the bass, of course, but I'm not willing to forgive this area. This is important information. Now, yes, the cabinet's gonna, have some role in that area. Let me engage the cabinet. Okay, notice what the cabinet has done, right? It's done some stuff. This is the Tweed Deluxe cabinet. This stock, not stock, this is the 2-Rock one. This is a Tone Junkie Deluxe Reverb capture. And then this is my speaker from my amp, the Warehouse G12CS. This is the Super Reverb one, right? Notice that they're all kind of following that shape, right? Even though there's differences, they're still, you know, the cabinets are affecting this region a whole lot, and that's really what they do. They affect this region a ton. But notice that it's still rolling off this area. Now, here's something that we can do is we can go into here and we can get an impulse response loader, right? And then it's gonna, you know. So next, if I go to my IRs, like let me get the, I'll do the Tone Junkie one because people can get that one as well. Let me get the Tone Junkie 1966 Utah speaker, and we'll get the one that I was using here. So we'll get the Fat 545. Okay, so let me bypass. If I bypass the ACS1, so notice the ACS1 is bypassed, right? And I'm using this Utah speaker here from Tone Junkie, the Utah Fat 545-3. And we can also look at, and if I go to the IR manager in the ACS1, we can see that down here, oh, it's this one. In back slot C, we have the same impulse response. Tone Junkie 66 Utah Fat 545-3. So I've selected back one here. Let's set all that EQ at noon. The cab is obviously going, right? The amp is engaged, of course. So hang on, let's bypass our pulse. Okay, so this is what it looks like when we have the cabinet in on the ACS1. Now I'm going to bypass the cabinet. Oops, sorry. This is what it looks like when the cabinet is in, sorry. Here we have cabinet in on the ACS1 on the Fullerton setting. I'm going to bypass the cabinet. We have this sound now. Let me engage pulse, right? Broadly pretty similar, right? Right, those look very similar, right? So we know that the cabinet, that's what the cabinet's doing. Let me bypass the ACS1 altogether, right? Flat white noise, now let's add the cabinet. Notice, this area is not rolled off. There's still stuff up here. If I select a different impulse response, let me go over here and find a different one. Let's go get a... Let's get this, let's go to the David Hislop IRs. Let's go to, and I think his kind of roll off some stuff too, but let's look at this one from the 10-inch speaker out of the Fender Pro Sonic. Right? Let's go to the 545, position 3. Yeah, you can see that it's rolling off stuff, but there's still this information all the way in this region, right? Whereas if I bypass this and turn on the ACS1, look at that roll off. It just rolls it right down. And the amp has some stuff up there, but so anyway. Now the next test I want to do is let's use a different amp software and let's see what it looks like. So I got Amplitude 5 recently and I was really enjoying it. So let's come into Amplitude 5 and let's select a deluxe reverb because that's what the ACS1 is modeled after, and let me set all the EQ at 5 on here, right? So instead of doing anything crazy, let's set the EQ at 5, volume at 3 so there's no distortion, right? Reverb's off, vibratos or tremolos off, bypassing the cabinet here, okay? So there should be nothing weird happening, okay? So now let's turn on Amplitude. Notice this, right? This is very different. Look at all of this. There's this big bump here. There's a ton of high-end information, all the way up to 20 kilohertz and all the way down to 20 hertz, right? Versus this, right? Oops. Yeah, and I have the impulse response bypassed, right? That's a big difference, and that's the thing that I'm not loving about my ACS1 is that I need some of that high-end harmonic content for kind of this pop-punk distortion tone that I want, you know, to kind of preserve the accuracy of the fuzzes. And people might be saying, well, ew, I don't want that information up there. I do, and I think that guitar tones kind of need that texture to help them cut through a dense mix. And so Walrus, if you're listening to this, you've added in the firmware updates the ability to have a high and a low pass filter. why then are you adding an additional one later? So I have the high and low pass filters opened all the way up on my ACS1, but frustratingly, it's still rolling off the very high and the very bottom end. I don't care if it sounds fizzy, if I can make this thing sound fizzy. I want that texture. I want the ability to have it and be able to roll it back. And people might be saying, well, Zach, you know, you could get a Tonex, you could get a Quad Cortex, you could get an Iridium, you could get an HX Stomp. But the thing is I love the form factor and the controls of this pedal. It's just the perfect size for my pedal board. It has all the right features. Just the one thing is that frequency response of the amp models, they're just shelving the high and the low end unnecessarily so. They're rolling off too much. So I guess my ask is that if we could do a firmware, if you guys could do a firmware update where you kind of get rid of some of that kind of frequency, you know, kind of that roll off that's happening, I would greatly appreciate it. If there's, you know, a version 2 of the ACS1 coming and it's a hardware limitation, I would greatly appreciate that, you know, update as well. But yeah, I mean, that's just my kind of issue with this, is just that we have, that is kind of a problem for me, is that I see that we have kind of that, you know, that limitation. Thanks for watching, Walrus. People, just know that I am not doing this as someone who hates your guts and wants your brand to fail. This is as someone who is a happy customer and wants to be a even more happy customer, and as someone who wants to see your brand continue to grow. I am in no way affiliated with any other brand, any other competing brands, Strymon, Line 6, Quad Cortex, Neural DSP, you know, none of those, Neural DSP and Quad Cortex are the same thing. I know that. IK Multimedia, and this isn't an advert for Amplitude either. It's just I noticed that when I was using Amplitude, right, I was getting all this detail, all this top end, and yeah, sometimes that top end is a lot. Sometimes I have to roll the treble controls on those amp models down super far. But I still like having it there. And the problem with the ACS1 is I'd have to like carve out all the mids, and then I'd be left with this noise. And, you know, and it's not my DI. And I know that people are going to say, well, you should have used the Canvas DI. I showed you. I bypassed the ACS1, and we are getting a nice, too much level, actually. It was clipping, right? It was clipping, but it was still razor flat, right, across the board, right? You saw it on the screen, right? The, you know, the white noise was coming through, and it was just flat frequency response according to Cubase, right? So it's totally fine when I'm doing like light gain stuff, church vibe stuff, funk stuff. You know, I don't really care about that high-end harmonic content as much. I still want it, but I don't care about it as much. But for other things, it does become an issue. And so I'm just you know, I think it would just sound much better if we opened up the filters. And then, you know, because you've added that other stuff in firmware, I'm pretty sure what happened here was, my speculation is that Walrus designed it this way before they added the high and low pass filters that were user controllable. Or maybe they're part of the same thing. They're the same filters, but they just limit how far you can open them. My ask is just that you allow us to do more stuff with this pedal. It's really flexible. It's really great. Maybe you're already working on this and I can just shut up and go away. Okay, so this was the message that I sent to Walrus Audio. I just contacted them on their website. I don't have anyone at Walrus's email or anything like that. So I just said, I have a question regarding the ACS1. I noticed that with some distortions and fuzzes, it seemed to roll off frequencies in the 20 Hz to 100 Hz region and the 10 kHz to 20 kHz region more than my Ampeg GVT15112 tube amp and my IK Multimedia Amplitude models, specifically the licensed Fender Deluxe Reverb model. I got curious and set up a test by running white noise into the input of the ACS1 from my DAW. I bypassed the cabinet simulations and noticed that the amp models seemed to strongly roll off the upper treble from 20 kHz to 10 kHz to 20 kHz and lightly roll off the bass, 20 Hz to 100 Hz. I made sure the high and low pass filters on the ACS1 were set to their lowest and highest cutoff frequencies respectively. This I checked against the Amplitude Deluxe Reverb model with its cabinet emulation bypassed, misspelled it, which did not roll off these frequencies. I understand that some of this is probably by design to make the ACS1 a smooth and easy to dial in pedal platform. However, would it be possible in the next firmware update to allow for more high treble and more low bass to pass through the pedal in a more realistic manner? Maybe this is an ACS2 thing, perhaps.
Since the pedal has high and low pass filters, why not allow for the pedal to pass more frequencies and let the user dial it back with the filters as needed? I hope this isn't perceived as strongly negative feedback. I just wanted to share my findings and inquire about this, since it's something I'd love to see improved on future firmware updates or successors to the ACS1. I still love the form factor and the feature set of the ACS1, and I'm a proud owner of a 385, which is a pedal Walrus makes, for 5 years, and a MAKO M1 as well. So that was my message that I sent to Walrus, and then I did receive an email a few days later, which I'll read to you right now. Okay, so Walrus responded to my inquiry with this email, and they said, "Hey, Zachariah, thanks for reaching out. This does sound like it could be expected, and it's by design for the ACS1. That being said, we greatly appreciate the feedback, and we'll take this into consideration when working on possible updates to the ACS1. If there's anything else I can assist with, let me know. I will be happy to help out. Thanks." Someone at customer service and repairs at Walrus Audio. I've hidden their name so that, I don't know. I don't know who would be nefarious and go after some customer service person at Walrus, but anyway. Here's the thing. This is kind of what I was thinking. It's just something that's designed into the pedal. They made this choice to make it easier to work with more pedals, I guess, and maybe if the distortion characteristics weren't that pleasant with the filters, rolled all the way open, then, adding a little bit of filter to the very top and very bottom is a great way of just kind of controlling, those perhaps unpleasant distortion characteristics in the amp models really easily. So Walrus has kind of skirted the issue of making those amp models. And I'm not saying that their amp models sound bad if you were to take out the filters. I have no idea. I'm just saying that could be a reason why, or maybe they just like the sound of it. They thought it sounded good this way. And I think that when you're using lighter gain stuff, I think it totally does. It sounds fine. You don't really need all of that info all the time. Although I will say that if you run a guitar DI into, your audio interface, you will see stuff all the way up to 20 kilohertz. Guitar pickups can totally put out information up there. So it's not like guitars aren't incapable of doing it. And I've heard some people say things like, oh, well, the guitar pickup can't reproduce any frequencies above 10 kilohertz. It's just not true. As single coils definitely can. Humbuckers maybe not in the same way. It's much reduced compared to the other frequencies, but I don't know. At least my Jazzmaster seems to put out frequencies in that region. So anyway, all this to say is I've decided to sell my ACS1. I don't have a ton of cash, so it went on the chopping block. I decided to switch to the UA Dream, and I've been very happy with it. And you'll see a video comparing the two soon. But I guess if you're looking for the ACS1 and this and you think I'm full of crap, or you just don't want to, you don't mind a little frequency roll off, please support my channel and me by buying this ACS1 from me. And you can find it at the link in the description, not the bio. You can find it at the link in the description. Please buy it from Sweetwater. Gear Exchange is my preferred way of selling stuff, although I've still never sold anything on there. But you could be the first person. Give me those Sweetwater bucks. Or you can buy it at reverb.com, and there'll be some kind of a fee. All things considered, the ACS1's been really great for the past 2 years that I used it. Really did truly love it and got so much out of it. There's so much great music I made with this pedal. So I'm really glad to have used it. And, I can't wait for the future with new devices. We're really living in the golden age. We have so many devices to choose from. It's not just the Rockman or the Bean. We have so many different choices. So anyway. Thanks to everyone who watched this far, and take it easy. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.